Hey, everybody, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yes, here we are. Now, it's a little bit of maybe a somber moment because Dr. Davis was not able to join us, so we'll be sad.
Somber. She's still at ICOM.
Oh, right. She's not like dead or anything.
R.I.P.
She's not gone, right? Yes. No, no. She's here. She's at
a conference. She's a busy doctor.
Hard at work. Yeah. Busy doctor. Doing all the things.
But we're holding down the fort without her. And I think we'll be okay because we have two awesome
With these guys,
students.
We'll be fine. Yeah.
Yes, we have two third-year students joining us today. We have Jett and Mohammad Abuakar. Thanks so much for being on our podcast today.
Welcome, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Together we make 1.5 doctors.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and Brian and I make 0 doctors.
0 doctors. So
So
1.5 at the table is going to have to do for today.
As long as nobody has a medical event, we'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll be okay.
I'll pull my paramedic skills out of there somewhere.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Just run out the door and get one of the faculty.
Yeah. Hey, who wants to come in and help us?
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. We wanted to invite some third-year students on the pod to share their experiences so far in clinical rotations. And so we thought, why not invite like 2 of our faves? So thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We're so excited to be here, honestly.
Super stoked to be here. Stoked to be a fave. So
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Totally. And don't let the camera scare you. We're trying something new out with a video element to our podcast. So
Yeah, so those of you who are seeing us for this first time, I'm sorry. It's just what it is.
did it ruin the fantasy?
Maybe.
We'll see how
But
it goes.
thank goodness we've got Russell in here controlling
Yeah.
it, so I'm sure he can add all of the great filters to make us look completely unblemished. And
The slimming effect. We'll just send him a Venmo.
good.
And I'll make it happen.
You got to make some good edits on me there, Russell.
Yeah.
It's raining outside, so my hair is like matted down.
It was snowing earlier, so
That's
welcome
true.
to
I know.
Idaho.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's
Welcome
getting
to
better
Idaho.
somehow.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Okay, so we are at the point in the school year where third year is almost over. How much time do you guys have left in your third year?
Only a few months here. I have one more core required rotation, and then that's it for me.
Yeah, I got 2 more. And then I have my residency prep in that 3rd month where it's kind of studying for boards and things. So we have officially like 3 more months of our third year, but I only have 2 rotations left and he's got the 1. So
Yeah.
we're getting close to wrapping it up, which is insane to me, honestly.
Plugging
It's so
along.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's been fast.
And we have Accepted Students Day happening downstairs with our incoming
Yeah.
class of 2028. We probably couldn't pay you enough to relive.
I mean, I'm
The
about to,
last 2 years.
I'm going to have to go
Right.
down there after this and just like, put on a face of like, oh my gosh. No, but honestly, it's crazy to think like I met you like almost 3 years ago. Which
Nuts.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah, time has really flown. The days are definitely long, but the weeks are really short.
Yeah.
And that is especially true in third year when you're in the clinic and studying when you get home in the afternoons. So it's been a great period of growth for me. But yeah, it's happened really quickly.
What advice do you guys have for those students downstairs, those accepted students that are going to hit their first day, here in a few months?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say it's really important for students to be kind to themselves and really take the time that they need to adapt to the rigors of medical school. It takes a lot to be here. It takes a lot to be successful. And I think that a lot of people come in expecting it to be easy. And it's not. It's something that you have to work for, which of course we all know, but it is really essential that you prioritize self-care during that period of time.
Great. Yeah.
And I was honestly going to go off a very similar note. It's just like, don't let go of who you were before you came to medical school. I think it's really easy to get engulfed in everything medical school because it is. I mean, it's just so hard. There's so much to do. There's always ways that you can be better preparing yourself. And I think that you should always do the best that you can, but just don't let go of who you were before.
That's a good point because medical school is a huge part of your life, but it's not your whole life. You have your own identity
Yes.
aside from being a student doctor.
Of course. And I think that we should make sure that we always hold on to who we are because that's what got us into here. That's what's going to hold us over as we continue on in our careers. So never let go of that.
Yeah. Looking back on your third year, was it what you anticipated it to be? Is it what you were expecting?
Honestly,
For better or worse?
I would say it was better. I'm actually loving third year so much. If I could say anything to even just like those students downstairs is like the first 2 years are going to be rough. it gets better. It gets so much better. Obviously, I haven't gone through fourth year yet. I hear fourth year is even better than third year, but third year has been awesome just being able to experience everything. Our preceptors in the Treasure Valley, at least, are incredible. I've had amazing experiences with people out here. And just being in clinic, like being with patients and actually being able to do the thing that we came to medical school for, amazing. I love third year so much, honestly.
Yeah, I would totally agree with all of that. The thing that really surprised me about third year right at the beginning was that we're immediately treated in some rotations, some more than others, depending on the specialty, but we're immediately treated like, autonomously. So my first rotation was internal medicine, and on the first day that I showed up, the residents and the interns there, handed me the list of patients that were in the hospital, and they said, all right, go pre-round, come back and present to us and tell us what you think is going on. And that was a little bit of a shell shock for me, to just one day walk into clinic and be treated like I had medical knowledge. And of course I do.
Well, I mean, you do.
But it really is such a paradigm shift from the first 2 years when you're in the classroom. People really respect that you spent all that time studying, and when you show up, they're ready to give you opportunities to really continue to learn and get involved as much as possible. And I've been really appreciative of that.
Yeah. So. And I mean, honestly, like even just like some of the nurses sometimes will just be like, hey, like, do you have room 236 or something? And it's like, I do. In fact, I do. Yeah, so it is. I totally agree with that as well.
Every once in a while, you like walk out of a patient room after a nurse walks in, and they'll be like, "Thank you, doctor." And you're like,
"Yes,
yes,
it's happening."
You're like, "I'm not gonna correct."
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take it. So
that's so cool. Has there been a particular aha moment that you've had where you've been like, "Oh, this is why I wanted to become a doctor"? Have you experienced that?
Honestly, quite a few times, I feel like, where it's just like you see patients and they're struggling through something, and then you're able to help them get to where they need to be and help them on their journey of health, and that's why I got into medicine. I started my journey back when I was 8 years old. I knew I wanted to be a physician. Like, it all started with my little brother, who was born, and he went into cardiac arrest just a few hours after birth. And so the neonatal team was resuscitating him. And so I got to see that happen, and that's where my journey started. And to see what the doctors were able to do for him and to bring him back. And now he's 21. He's a total brat. I love him though. And to see what they were able to do there, that's what got me into medicine. And every time I'm in the clinic now and I'm seeing patients, and there's something that you can do for them that really makes a difference for them and their families, that's like, yes, this is why I did this. Where there's patients who are really struggling or their family's really struggling, and you're like able to do something to make a difference in someone's life. It's like, this is why I'm doing this.
That's
and I
beautiful.
love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. For me, the thing that I really take a lot of enjoyment from and a lot of pride from is when I can sit down with a patient and really make a personal connection. One of my favorite things in the world is to make a patient laugh. Every once in a while, I'm able to do that just by bantering with them, and it feels really impactful. When you walk in there and you say, hey, my name is Jett, I'm a medical student, is it all right if I start with you? And initially they're kind of like, yeah, I guess. And then by the end of the visit, they're like, hey, this is pretty great. You can tell that they've warmed up to you.
Yeah.
So that for me is really impactful, and I really enjoy those interactions a lot.
That's awesome. When you first started third year, did you have an idea of what specialties you would be drawn to, and has that changed?
Yeah, so for me, I came into medical school with some previous experience working in a tendon tissue engineering lab in undergrad, and that leans really well into orthopedics, but actually also osteopathic medicine as well, kind of focusing on the weight-bearing system of the body that is the skeletal system. And so all along throughout medical school, I've thought to myself, orthopedic surgery sounds like what I want to do, but of course it's really competitive. And so I really wanted to rotate through it and be able to make an informed decision about it. And I had an orthopedics rotation earlier this year in January, actually, and it was everything I ever wanted it to be and more.
Good, yeah.
So
cool.
That's what I'm going to try to pursue, but I'm really excited about it. And there's a lot of other really good options as well as you go through. I mean, there's something to love in every specialty, and I think that that's really important to kind of keep in mind as you progress, because there's a lot of things that I can see myself doing at this point that I would have never considered before.
That's great. What about you? I think
Yes.
I know your answer.
Yeah, for better or for worse, I think everyone knows my answer.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of experience pre-hospital as a paramedic for a long time. So I was an EMT. I just actually got my EMT as just to just have something on my resume and just kind of experience it. And I fell in love. And so then after undergrad, I actually went to paramedic school and then fell in love with that, worked on the fire department, and then saw this amazing thing called the mobile stroke unit, which is like, we had a really cool ambulance with like a full CAT scanner in the back of the ambulance. And I saw that, and it was in our area because there's only like 7 in the country. And I saw that and I was like, how do I get on that? And so I decided to go get my critical care. And so I got my critical care paramedic. And then I finally settled myself down and was like, all right, well, the only way up from here is to go to medical school. And so I knew I wanted to pursue emergency medicine. Like that was without a doubt, like the only thing I ever wanted to do. And it still is, thankfully. I haven't had my emergency medicine rotation yet. And I was just talking to Dr. Bridger this morning where if I happen to not like it, I'm kind of screwed because there's like everything is emergency medicine on my resume. So nothing, but I am super excited. I love emergency medicine. And so I knew I wanted to do that. But echoing Jett's point, I really think that like there were so many other things where I was like, this is actually really cool. I really enjoyed it, and possibly something that I would do if I didn't want to do this. If I didn't want to do EM. But just because we kind of knew exactly what we wanted doesn't mean everyone will.
Right.
And so always having an open mind as to what you want to do is okay.
Was there any of those maybe rotations that you went to where it was a specialty that maybe you just weren't as interested in or weren't really expecting anything, but you had an aha moment at that point that just kind of not necessarily something that made you go, oh, okay, maybe this is the specialty for me, but just something that maybe said, oh, now I have this new respect for this other thing. Did you have any moments like that?
I did. OB-GYN, obstetrics and gynecology.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did not think about it. That was never on my radar. I had delivered like two or three babies like back when I was a paramedic, but like if they're calling 911, like
it's different.
The baby's like already
Yeah.
out. Like I'm just there to like play catch. But once I did my OB rotation, it was incredible. And I don't know if it was just because it was my preceptor or not, but my preceptor, Dr. Guzman, I could not speak more highly of this man. And
We hear great things about him.
I cannot speak more highly of him. He's just incredible. I mean, there's a reason why patients will drive hours to come see him. Just seeing him interact with patients and everything. Like I know, like on our evaluations of our preceptors, like it's one of the questions is like, does this physician carry the values that you would want to have as a physician one day? And like that was like, can I put this at like a 20 out of 10? He's really amazing. But I think like he really opened my eyes to the beauty of obstetrics and gynecology and like being able to help people and their families and bring life to the world is just incredible. So that was one of the ones where I was not expecting to like it. And I walked out thinking like, ooh,
A pleasant surprise.
maybe I really, really like this, but yeah, so that was mine.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm not necessarily interested in this specialty, but one of the interactions that I really enjoyed having this year was in family medicine. And I did family medicine in a rural town, a little bit north of here. With a preceptor who's been there for 30 years and is really well established and knows everybody and has this longitudinal relationship with all of these patients. And so he gave me a lot of autonomy from day one. As soon as I was there, I was seeing a big number of the patients, a bulk of the patients with him or on my own every day, and really getting the opportunity to kind of connect with people, like I was saying before. And since he knew all these patients, we had a younger gal who was probably in her early 20s come in, and she was there to discuss anxiety because she was about to be married and was just feeling like a lot of pressure, at that point in time. And he told me, he said, you can go try this, Jett, if you want to, but it might be hard to connect with her. And so I went in and I sat down and I just said, hey, what's going on? Tell me about how you're feeling. And she totally opened up to me. And we had a conversation that was about 45 minutes. It went well over the amount of time that we were, supposed to have the visit, but we just kept going because she had so much that she wanted to get off of her chest and so much that she wanted to talk about. And anyways, I was able to really have kind of a two-way conversation with her about my experience, with marriage, and my experience with my relationship, which is very great. And at the end of it, she said, thank you. I feel so much better since I came in here.
Cool.
I really appreciate this conversation that we had. And so that was really cool for me.
That's a great example of family medicine, like spanning across all different specialties.
Yeah,
Because it sounds like
yeah.
you did a little bit of psych in there too.
It was very conversational. Yeah, we didn't prescribe anything during that visit. It was really just, hey, this is where we're at. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do for you. And we were able to figure that out.
And what's really awesome is like, this is the one unique thing about being a medical student is where you still have some time constraints. Like obviously, like, your attendings are going to want you to kind of move forward. but you actually get to be able to sit with the patient and really have those kind of conversations where like a lot of your attendings, unfortunately, you know, like the healthcare system, which that's a whole different topic, but you know, it might kind of only permit you 10, 15 minutes with a patient. Whereas when you have a medical student and your medical student's actually able to sit down and like take a little bit more time and really dive deep, I think first of all, a lot of the physicians love it because then it kind of opens that up. But it's really beautiful to be able to experience this right now because we might not always have that luxury, but being able to do that, I think, is awesome. Super cool.
Yeah, I totally love, as a medical student, the fact that we can have kind of longer conversations with people and get to know them a little bit, even beyond what they're in the clinic for. That's something that I've experienced time and time again. And for a lot of our elderly patients as well that have extensive encounters with the medical system and a lot to talk about, sometimes they'll just start telling you about their grandkids or their life. And it's really fun, you know, to have that conversation and hear about their experience. So that's pretty great for me.
What advice would you give to incoming third-year students who are a little nervous about wanting to position themselves in a way that they are helpful to the healthcare team that they're about to join for the short 4-week period that they're there? How can they make the best use out of their time?
So I would say, you're always going to be in the way somehow, whether you realize it or not.
Those memes are right.
It's true.
Unfortunately.
I just finished general surgery, and it was an awesome rotation, and I learned a lot. But I somehow was always standing in the way of the scrub tech or the circulator nurse or the physician assistant or the doctor. And so be really good at backing up and knowing what's behind you, because if you were to back into the table, right, that's sterile.
That's a bad mistake. Don't do that.
That's a bad day. Yeah, don't break the sterile field. But I would say, in all seriousness, read every night, right? Always be studying, always be trying to improve. Realize that you're still a learner, and take the opportunity to learn, but don't have the expectation that you'll know everything on day one. Know how to learn, what you need to learn, and then just keep at it and keep trying, and that's how you'll be successful.
And don't even have the expectation that you'll be an expert at it after day 30 either.
That's true.
You'll continue. It's like constantly learning, But I was going to say the same thing. So my other one that I will say though, and I truly believe this, is just don't be scared to be wrong. I think we as medical students are so in our own heads sometimes. Med school attracts a lot of certain types of personalities, and like a lot of us are, may have type A personalities or always want to be right or whatever the case is. It's okay to be wrong. And especially when you're on clinical rotations, like this is your opportunity to be wrong, where you can come up with a treatment plan and present it to your resident, and they can say, nope, but thanks for giving me that information. And then you can learn from why that was wrong, right?
Yeah.
And the residents are always, at least the residents I've had, were always so helpful. It's like, yeah, like let's actually dissect that a little bit. Like this is actually what we're gonna do for this reason or whatever. So don't take it ever personally. Like take this as an opportunity to go in there every time that you have a chance, come up with a treatment plan, like think things through as much as you can, and you may be totally off base, and that's okay. And then you're able to present that to your attending or your resident, and they can correct that, and nothing will ever happen to the patient incorrectly, because there's always those safety nets. So this is your opportunity to really just like push yourself to your limits, get yourself out of your comfort zone, and really, really see what you're capable of.
And that's you mentioned something really interesting. You can learn from every member of the healthcare team, right? Not just your preceptor.
Oh, yeah.
So you even mentioned like learning from the residents, or I'm assuming like the nurses or the MAs.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you're like, honestly, the nursing staff, they're hands-on with the patient so much that they've seen so many things and they have so much experience. And it's honestly wonderful to learn from the nurses, and you can learn from every member of the healthcare team. Some of the MAs I've learned amazing things from, about just like tips and tricks on how to get things done right, and do it quickly and effectively and efficiently. Some things that maybe the physicians have kind of been out of practice with or haven't done in a while, where you can get those tips from the MAs or the nurses or things like that. So for sure.
Yeah, totally. MAs specifically, I would say, are a really great resource for medical students, because a lot of times they'll interview the patient before you do, and they'll have an idea of actually why they're already there. So sometimes they'll bring you some information that's helpful to start with. And so I just have gotten in the habit of asking everybody I run into on my way to the patient room every question about the patient that I, might need to know as I go in there. Like, hey, why are they here? Have you talked to them? What did they say? Who's in the room with them? Do they have their spouse? Do they have their kids? What are the expectations? What do they want out of this visit? And those things help you to have a more pointed conversation, which of course then leaves time on the back end to have a more personal conversation as well and make more of a personal connection.
One thing that I learned working in this field, and I don't want to speak for you, Brent, but I think I have a feeling that I will be, getting pimped.
Okay. I don't know where this is going.
Has a whole different meaning now that I work in a medical school. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Why does it happen to you?
So, okay.
How do you feel when it happens to you?
Everyone talks.
How do you survive it?
This pimping is like the scariest thing that every medical student is like just absolutely terrified of. Honestly, I don't know about Jett. Haven't really experienced any like crazy pimping.
Okay.
I don't know. I think like
what is pimping?
Yeah, we need to define.
Yes.
that.
Okay.
What is
Let's
pimping?
start over
there.
from here.
Yeah.
So basically, pimping is just like when attending or a resident or someone asks you a question of something that they're trying to trip you up or trying to ask you something that you may not know or just trying to see like the extent of your knowledge. So they may be in the middle of a surgery or they may be in the middle of a case and they're like asking you something like, "Hey, what is this?" Like trying to
They're trying to test you.
Yeah, and I think that this probably does happen quite a bit, especially depending on where you're at. I think, again, like I said, we have just incredible preceptors here in the Treasure Valley where they're just so like wanting to teach you and wanting you to be successful that I just haven't really experienced it in a way that felt the way that other people describe as pimping. Like people make it feel like it's like this scary thing. And I'm sure it does happen. I'm not going to discount that because I'm sure that it
makes
does.
it look scary.
Yes, and I'm sure it does. I've just been really lucky that I haven't experienced it to that. Or maybe I have, but it's just like the preceptors are very willing to help you out or guide you or whatever and don't make you feel like you're totally dumb. Because that's the one thing that no one wants to feel. And our preceptors so far, I haven't really hasn't been where they like made me feel like stupid or anything. So I haven't experienced a crazy amount of pimping, but it does happen every so often,
Yeah, I do feel dumb, but not ever because of
Yeah, right, exactly.
More so just because that's how my day-to-day life is. So for those who may not know, PIMP is an acronym for Put in My Place, and essentially
there it is.
Yeah, there's no feathers, no like purple velvet,
Nothing nefarious.
nothing nefarious. Nope. And
Dude, I didn't even know that.
I didn't even know
I had
that.
no
There you
idea
go.
that that's what it stood for.
That's what I've heard per Reddit,
Put
which is
in my
very
place.
reputable.
Okay,
so
yeah,
that
yeah,
may
yeah.
not be correct.
If it's on Reddit, it's 100%.
100% true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
More true than TikTok.
Yeah.
But, I really see it as an opportunity to have the extent of my knowledge assessed. So some people do have scarier experiences with pimping. You might have an attending physician or a preceptor who really asks a lot of questions when they don't expect you to know the answer, even well beyond they know that you don't understand the subject material. And that would probably be an example of the scarier kind of pimping. But in my experience, it really is just to figure out what we still need to learn because the preceptors are there to be teachers primarily. That's their function, and that's what they like to do, and that's what they're signed up to do. So once they understand the extent of our knowledge as students, then they can pick up right there and continue to teach us what we need to know to be successful in the rotation.
Yeah.
And
So-
so that's where I'm at, my experience with it.
That's good. Okay, so it sounds like you guys have had some positive experience with pimping.
Positive pimping.
I would say so.
Positive pimping.
Yeah, there you go.
No shaming.
No shaming.
No shame.
Only positivity.
I really do feel bad for the people who do experience that though, because I can see, because I've had it every so often, and it's like it is a really uncomfortable moment.
Uncomfy,
Yeah,
yeah.
you don't like it, and so if people get that all the time, like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
So sad for them.
But at that moment too, right? That's when you have to remember, have the perspective to know that you are just a learner and you're there to learn. And that's what you're paying to do, is to learn. And so it's okay to say, I don't know, every once in a while.
Yeah.
As long as you're going to try to learn the information that
I think that's
follows.
actually a really good point because everyone can read through you like really easily, right? Like if you try giving up some answer that you know is totally not right and you're just trying to make something up to like, you know, get them whatever, they're going to read right through it and they're going to hold you to that and it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
It's okay to say that you don't know. It's okay to, you know,
be
like,
honest.
hey, I don't know this, but take the initiative, say, hey, I'm not sure about that answer, but let me look it up and come back to you with that answer. And they love that, right?
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So days at the clinic, fun, awesome, play doctor. How do you balance clinic life with school life? Because you still have to like do schoolwork, right? And tests and things, I'm assuming.
Yeah. We're looking at each other right now. We're sharing a look.
Yeah, we are sharing a look.
So, you know, I think it's really important. Clinic hours vary. It depends on what rotation you're in. And so your work-life balance can vary throughout the year as you have different experiences. But one of the things that you really have to do, no matter what rotation you're in, is still prioritize that work-life balance. So outside of clinic, we do have academic requirements, also depending on the rotation. Sometimes we have lectures, sometimes we have practice questions or other assignments that we have to do. At the end of a core rotation, which is a rotation that's required for graduation, we have a final exam. It's called a COMAT, essentially a shelf exam. And so you are studying during that time. You know, you work the normal clinic hours, and then you come home at the end of the day and you study. And so it can become really overwhelming really quickly. And it's easier to be overwhelmed, I think, and have not enough hours in the day than it is to prioritize well-being subconsciously. And so that just means that you have to do it consciously. You have to say to myself, hey, you know, it's important that I go to the gym for an hour today. Otherwise, you might go 6 months before you get back into the gym.
Yeah.
We're looking at each other because we had this conversation.
Which is currently where I'm at. Mo goes to the gym all the time. It's been 6 months for me. So.
I really agree because it is difficult. I mean, honestly, like, you know, as much as I've loved third year, I think that's why people say fourth year is just so much better because you get to explore your interests and you don't have the same level of like responsibility for all these exams and things. It is really difficult to balance all these things. It's just different because in the first 2 years, I felt like, you know, you had your standard classroom hours, but then like the rest of your day, you can kind of set up however you want to study, however you study best. Whereas when it comes to clinic, your hours are going to vary sometimes by day, and you don't really know what your clinic is going to look like. It's going to be very different from preceptor to preceptor, from specialty to specialty. And so you can't really always come up with like the best study schedule. And so it gets really overwhelming. But I do think that like I was like Jett was saying, where you have to make a conscious effort and kind of like what I was saying before, where you don't want to lose yourself. You need to still make time for the things that are important to you. And so for me, at least I know like, you know, for going to the gym daily, that's a big thing. And then on weekends, I'll meal prep and get all my cooking done and all that. Like I'm going to do those things. Everything else kind of gets put to the side for the time being. And then there's maybe a few nights where or maybe a night a week or something that I'll play like Call of Duty with my friends, right? Just like something that brings me back to like, you know, outside of medical school, just doing my thing. And then all the rest of it is dedicated towards the clinicals and all that. So it is difficult, but you do get in the habit and you realize how to adapt to it. You did it for the first 2 years. You'll figure it out for the third year as well, you know?
Is that where you feel like your extracurricular interests are kind of like a lifeline for you? I know, Jett, like you're interested in the political aspect of medicine and lobbying, and Mo, you with the emergency medicine, just planning a mass casualty incident simulation training event. The biggest one in school history, like no big deal.
Maybe the state's history.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I tell everybody to get really involved in extracurricular activities and also things that can build your resume, not only because the match is competitive, but it does become a lifeline because in addition to your school obligations, which are obligations, you now have this extracurricular obligation. But instead of making you feel like you have fewer hours in the day, it becomes a lifeline, essentially. It does give you something to give you an outlet to socialize, give you opportunities to make a positive difference in the world outside of medicine. And so for me, that's been a lot of policy experiences, working with legislators on Capitol Hill in D.C., as well as at the Idaho State House, and our fantastic administration here. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. But
yeah, and I think like those extracurriculars, for me, they ground me, right? Like those are things that I'm truly interested in. And so the extracurriculars of like emergency medicine stuff at ICOM, is truly, I mean, actually just an hour before this, I handed over leadership to the new leadership team. And it was a bittersweet
Was
moment.
that hard?
It was such a bittersweet moment because I've been the president for the last 2 years, and this club has been like my baby. I loved it so much. Like I really, truly found so much enjoyment in it. I handed over to Mary Pendleton, who's a second year, who's coming up as a third year. I trust her with my life, honestly, and she's gonna do amazing things for this club. So that part, I was like, yeah, I'm handing it over to the right person for sure. But you know, it was something that brought me so much joy over the last 2 years. And I think that like during clinicals, people often think like, again, you can't do things, you don't have time for anything else. But I did the mass casualty incident. I've been, you know, I was planning that out for the last 16 months. I was the president of the Icahn Emergency Medicine Org, and I also hold a few national positions. Like you can do the things that you want to do. It's all about you kind of prioritizing what's important to you and making time for the things that are important to you. So if you want to make time for it, you can make time for it. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't.
That's so true. And shout out to your classmate, Casey Smith, for picking competitive figure skating back up.
I
Like,
know. I was so
she's out
impressed.
in
Oh, really?
Montana living
Yes.
her best
Yep.
life.
Cool.
Like, yeah.
I'm so excited. Her and I are hoping to both go back to Chicago.
Fun.
Yeah, so I'm super excited for that. Yeah, she's great.
That's so cool. So where do you guys go from here? Like, what do you work on now? Is it rank order lists, audition rotations? Is it a little too early for that?
It's not. We have a few things that we're kind of working on, I think.
Yeah.
I think it starts off with, like right now, a lot of us are trying to get our audition rotations for fourth year set up.
Got it.
So we
Okay.
have our fourth year auditions kind of in the works of what specialty we want to go into. And for the people who don't know what an audition is, essentially it's just your opportunity to go to a program, kind of show yourself off, your skills, and audition for a residency at that program. It's kind of a little grueling, but it's also something that's really cool for you to be able to see the actual program and if it's a good fit for you. So a lot of us are trying to set those up right now. Once we finish up our clinical rotations, then we have our board exams. We have to take level 2.
Dun,
So
dun,
that's the
dun.
next thing that we're
Yeah.
working on. And then clinicals start, and then we apply for residency in September. So there's a few things that are all coming up pretty quickly back to back, which I can't believe it's a few
Yeah.
months away from
Yeah,
applying
it's-
to residency.
It's happened really
nuts.
quickly. Yeah, and I'll just add too, the auditions are, a lot of people think of them as a one-way interview where you as the student are being interviewed for a whole month, which does sound intense, but I think that you articulated this well, Mo. It really is a two-way interview because you can kind of see even beyond the program and what things you do and don't like about the program, you can see the city and the area that it's in and decide if this is somewhere that you'd want to live for 3 to 7 years if
Yeah.
you were going to potentially, pursue neurosurgery, which is crazy. But time flies. And so I would say, right now we're working towards residency at this point, which is really crazy. It has happened really fast.
Really
and
fast.
I'm excited to see what the next 5 years hold.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. I can't believe it.
Yeah, that's cool.
We were little babies when you first met us.
Yeah.
And
I know you guys were just like
With
hanging
your
out in
little
the
masks
student
on.
lounge,
Yeah.
like eating
With
your
our
little
masks
ice creams. Yeah.
oh my gosh, I remember that ice cream was good. It was great.
That's some good ice
Yeah,
cream.
so
And I saw you and I was like, that guy is going to give me a good soundbite for the video.
I know. I was watching that video the other day. I was like, oh, hey. Yeah.
Mo for president.
How did you
gosh.
know?
I just have a gut feeling.
oh
He was like the
gosh.
best guy for it.
Oh gosh, I appreciate that. Not at all, Jett. Honestly, this
No,
is
and Jett kills it at the state house. Whenever we go,
100%.
I'm like, Jett, are
Literally.
you busy?
Oh, I appreciate
We got to
that.
see the governor.
when I
Yeah.
found out that I was doing this podcast with him. I was like, "There's no other person that I would want to do it with." Like
Yeah.
honestly, Jett's awesome. So
Well, I love the sound of my own voice. And of course, the only way to get better at advocating for healthcare or patient access to care or whatever it may be is to go do it. And so it's okay to stumble through those things
Yep.
a little bit as long as you get a little better every time.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else you guys want to add or any other tips or advice you want to give to your younger peers as they start this process here soon?
honestly, I think I would say enjoy the time that you have while you're doing it. I think things in the moment can seem very daunting. They can seem like they're, Jett and I were talking about this earlier, where it's like, it feels like the 2 years of preclinicals and like the third year of medical school had just, at one aspect, it feels like it went by so fast. And then the other side, it's like, dude, it felt like it went by really slow, like day to day. But like
Oh, yeah.
over the year, it went by incredibly
Yeah.
fast. So things can get really daunting in the moment. Try to not let yourself get hyper-focused in on every little thing that's happening. And if something bad happens, like it's not the end of the world. It's okay to just kind of realize like there's a bigger picture, there's more going on. Don't get so bogged down and just enjoy the time that you have, because if you make the best out of it, like that's how you're going to make the best out of medical school in general, is what you put into it. So give yourself some grace, just enjoy yourself and enjoy the moments, all the good moments that come.
Love that.
I would say the most important guiding piece of advice that I could give is just to stay humble. I mean, we're student learners. We know this from day one, but medicine is so grueling that it becomes a lot of students and preceptors and everyone in between. It can become your personality, right? Because it really is a lifestyle. It goes beyond a normal 9 to 5. And so it's okay not to know everything, and it's okay not to be able to go from having no experience with healthcare to all of a sudden being in that lifestyle. It's important, again, to prioritize the work-life balance, but also realize that you're a lifelong learner, and showing up and saying, thank you to every preceptor. I learned something that I didn't know before is going to go a long ways. So
cool.
Excellent advice, you guys. I appreciate it. Let's get out of here and go heckle the first years.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go do it.
Thank you guys
Let's go
for coming
pimp
in.
the first years. Yeah.
Down. No, thank you so much
Thanks.
for having us. Honestly,
Yeah.
like it's really awesome to be here.
yeah, I really have received a lot of value throughout my life from mentorship, from students, people in my life, preceptors, everyone in between. And so I always think that it's really awesome to have these opportunities to kind of get to pass advice along. So yeah, thanks for having us. I always like to talk at people.
Cool.
No, you can come back anytime.
Yeah, yes. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Take care.